who is going to be the ones that are going to take the step forward of all these young bucks that we've got in the stable. A lot of young, highly drafted players over the past couple of years. Some of them appear to already be in the midst of emerging, like a Boye Mafe. Others gave us a little bit of a, almost scare in their first season in the lack of production completely. A guy like Derek Hall, where you get a little bit worried. But then there are also sort of your in-between ground spots with a guy like Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And he's a guy coming off of last year where he didn't have a bad rookie year, but it's definitely been fairly quiet this offseason, and some of what you hear about him from the fans, some fans really love Jaxon and think he's going to be that guy to come forward here. But then others are almost feeling like, okay, well, he's just going to be kind of a slot guy. He'll be all right over there. And as always with this, we've got to dive into the tail of the tape. We got to look at the stats. We got to look at how he was used to understand that first season in full. And part of, I think, in doing that provides a lot of optimism then for this upcoming season and into the future beyond. Because Jaxon Smith came to this Seattle Seahawks team and he was used in a certain way at Ohio State and not used exactly that way here with Seattle last season. This is an age we're seeing where slot receivers are running like kind of the number one receivers in a lot of respects. Cooper Kupp, Amon St. Brown, guys that are the number one targets on their team, and they're doing it from the slot. A lot of people are looking for Jaxon to become that last year, yet he didn't fit into that role at all. But then there was just the oddity of use in this Shane Waldron offense, and that Kupp that I started to show at the top, we're going to show in a second here, which is a little bit of a question posed to Jaxon Smith earlier this offseason as to what the Chicago Bears can expect with Waldron going there now as the new offensive coordinator, and his response wasn't the most glowing of ones. But Jaxon did have actually a pretty good season last year when you do pair it all together. You look at the stats overall, he's 63 receptions on 93 targets, 628 yards, 4 touchdowns, not lighting the world on fire certainly, but also not a bad year. And when you put this season up against Seahawks rookie receivers historically, it actually measures up pretty solidly, I would say. Is it an all-time type year? No, it's not. But that's, again, when we get to, let's get into a little bit of maybe the reasoning why that production got stifled a bit. And again, why, there's a lot of reason to believe that he can definitely grow off this rookie year. And in a lot of ways, it's impressive he's able to carve out the 628 yards when he was being kind of at times through certain games used, as I say, in a little bit of an odd fashion. Just didn't always make a ton of sense. But 63 receptions, 628 yards, where this ranks all time as far as Seattle Seahawks receivers are concerned. Joey Galloway put the best one in ever with 1,039 yards in 1995. Then we got DK in there at 900 yards back in 2019. Doug Baldwin bursting on the scene in 2011 with Tavarius Jackson. Daryl Turner. Oh, hi, kitty. Oh, okay. Daryl Turner. Big play Turner. You guys don't know about him from the early 80s. A big play machine out there. Dale Jackson, Holmgren receiver, Steve Largent. You guys all know that name. Brian Blaines, Tyler Lockett, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. So pretty good company to be in as far as historically these receivers in Seahawks history. All of them absent maybe Turner, who didn't last a long period of time and was kind of the one-trick pony. You can see with him, he had 35 receptions and managed that 715 yards. So he was just a big play guy back then. But absent him, Largent, Daryl Jackson, Doug Baldwin, DK Metcalf, Joey Galloway, Brian Blades, Tyler Lockett, all of these guys carved out really good careers, providing about this similar production. Tyler got, 20 more yards, albeit Jackson, of course, did get to play in one more game than Tyler because of the 17th game they now play. But not a bad year, not a bust year, not a, oh my God, he didn't hit expectations type of season. As you can see, Corin Robinson's on here. That's a top 10 former first-round pick for your Seahawks, only getting up to 500 in that first year. And Corin always did struggle to quite tap into that full top 10 potential. As far as PFF ranks with Jaxon, he was 75th on the year in the NFL, so nothing special there from the wide receiver position. 60, I always say, is about 63, 64 is about league average across the board, given position by position by position. So right around about the league average place as far as wideouts are concerned. You can see he's maybe struggling a bit at the most in the run blocking element of things when called upon to do that, but not a sizzling season, but average, not bad as well. Let's stay on to that point where it can't be measured, at least at the base place we stop here. It wasn't a bad rookie year, wasn't a bust rookie season. It wasn't a season that should be looked upon as the guy's limited, or we missed the pick on that one. We should have done this instead. We'll hold our horses on that one quite yet and see which one this plays out. I wanted to present a couple of the reasons here that are I think, at the forefront. And I think the number one reason has a lot to do with not utilizing Jaxon Smith-Njigba down the football field. They kept this kid at or around the line of scrimmage, or orbiting around the line of scrimmage, or on the screen game over and over and over and over again, play in and play out. And when I start with the beginning of what was done with him at Ohio State versus what we were doing with him last year, this is a big part of the pie. This is a huge slice of the pie. This is the slice of the pie that your relatives that's going 350, and you're looking at them, and you're looking at down there, and they're slicing that pie, and they're cutting up their piece, and you're like, that's bigger than a slice. You know that's bigger than a slice. And that was certainly the case here, where it's not the way he was. Yeah, there were some bubble screens you could find with Jaxon Smith at Ohio State, and yeah, they used him a little bit with some of the behind the line and scrimmage stuff. But when I tell you that it was extremely used in his fashion, I'm going to show it to you here, but it was really the odd way with Waldron and how they were using him. And when I do think about this and pair it with that fact that the Seahawks, as we've talked about many times over, weren't the biggest fans of targeting the middle of the football field, you start to wonder, was his production really inhibited by that? They knew it was, and so they leaned then back on the bubble screen, tunnel screen game to try to bump up a little bit of his production. You can see it though on plays like this, screen game to the outside against the Cardinals. You know, some of these are going to be successful. Some of these are going to be moderately successful. Some of these don't go anywhere that I'm going to show you. But I just want to get across again how often this was the way they mainly used Jaxon Smith-Njigba last year. It wasn't this and then a lot of this mixed in and that mixed in, and then they would go down the field with him here and they'd have him attack here. It was really simplicity across the board with him on this usage. And so oddly so. Back to the bubble screen again. And he's getting what he can out of this. The part that I find odd is that you're almost using him like a Deebo Samuel-like player in this bubble screen game and getting balls to him at the line of scrimmage. And he can break tackles. He can provide you some yak. But he's not, that's not the main, I think, skill that he brings into play. Route running, hands, getting open, a knack for understanding how to get open. That's what he mainly does. And you had him doing so much of this where he's left one-on-one by the design of like this play where there's nobody blocking in front of him. He's got a defender who's going to come right downhill. He's got to just break that tackle one-on-one. You're not kind of designing anything, of course. The Hawks don't pull any linemen in space, God forbid, last year. But this isn't really his game. This wasn't his game at Ohio State, coming out and doing that. That's Deebo Samuel's game. Again, back here with Tennessee. If you watch on the structure of this play, I'll slow it down. Similar to the last one, you've got a 2-by-2 situation with Metcalf and him. Metcalf can only pick up one of these guys. Jackson's got to break the other tackle. If I'm going to run a tunnel screen, bubble screen Jaxon, I tend to want to try to run it with having extra blockers out there. And yeah, I'd like him to be able to break a tackle, but I don't know if I'm going to set it up in the play design of how I want to do this. Top of your screen, 2-by-2 at the top of the screen. DK takes the one. Second gets downhill. There's defenders coming down as well that are unblocked. Like I said before, Hawks aren't going to pull their lineman in space here. You can see Damian Lewis kind of trickling out late there, but he isn't going to go lay a block. You end up with 3-4 defenders over here. This is those, when you talk about the going from the play designs from the former to the prior and some of the kind of frustrating ways in which it was built. This isn't really built for a lot of success, just to say, receiver, just go do it. I'm going to just throw you the ball over there and just do it. There'll be 4 defenders within 5 yards of me, 3 yards after catching the ball. Yeah, figure it out, make it happen. Again, another bubble screen here. At least they get some blockers at front this time. At least they get some linemen up. And whoa, what a shocker. You actually pull some linemen out. You actually get some linemen out to help out in the bodies, and he's actually able to carve out a pretty good play. It's almost like those things are, a little bit linked up a bit. But another bubble screen to him there. Back to the Lions. Bubble screen, nowhere to go. What's he supposed to do on this one? And they are trying on this one to technically get guys out in space. When I talk about the Damian Lewis, and I harped on this quite a bit with Damian over the past couple of years, his inability to get out to those blocks in space in the screen game and how it shows up over and over on tape with him when I watch the All-22. Watch 68 on this play trying to get down to that block. It's a complete miss from Damian. That's his responsibility. And there's nothing Damian can do about it here. This is just a matter of I can't get to that block. I have no way of doing it. And that's why when you look at evaluating offensive linemen and look at mobility or Christian Haynes or Bradford, this is the new lineman they're going to look for, is these guys that can actually get out in space to make these screens work. Because as you can see, you end up with Jaxon with, again, like I'm showing in a lot of these bubble screens, basically a one-on-one situation. He doesn't even have the time to react to the player closing on him here. But I can probably show you dozens of cut-ups of them when they try with Damian Lewis to move him out into space, failing at getting to this very type of block. And that block that he blows goes in, makes the play on the ball carrier. To illustrate my point on this, to not beat it too far into the ground, when you look at the receiving depth of Jaxon Smith-Njigba last year and where he was being targeted, where he was being not targeted, you certainly would understand a heavy amount of targets in the short and intermediate area. He's a slot receiver. That's the way slot receivers tend to be utilized. But that's not really what we see with the stats on him. Yes, there is a good amount of targets in the short area, but the targets to the medium part of the field are very limited. And the targets to deep are also very limited. What stands out when I first look at this is that behind the line of scrimmage, Jaxon Smith-Njigba had 32 targets last season. 32 targets last season. Behind the line of scrimmage. This is the route ninja. That's the nickname for this kid. Why are so many of those targets behind that line of scrimmage like that? It didn't add up. It didn't quite make sense. And notice as well, on the deep stuff, 11 targets deep, 6 receptions, 170 yards. When he is out there doing that or being asked to do that, he's making it happen. And indeed, there were moments that we got to see from him last year where there was that impact, where he's showing you that route running ninja ability trying to get up the football field. Show you a couple of fun targets here from last year, a couple nice ones here. Steelers lined up in the slot, get right up the field, run a kind of a little, it's almost kind of a soft post route here. It's not quite a 9. He just gets into the hole of the coverage there. So the subtle things you do in the slot. Because if he breaks this too hard and he goes right into the coverage, but instead keeps himself going upfield while softly getting into the middle of the field then. Breaks open. Geno Smith this is a dime by Geno, by the way. Look at Geno put this ball right up over 20's hand. Fitting this ball in there. But it's also Jaxon not making sure he just gets lateral here, away from the coverage, but also that he's getting the depth so that there's the room there for Geno Smith to fit this ball in over the top. If he cuts this in too narrow, if he goes towards the pylon, let's say, because he's trying to get away from the trail coverage, well, then he's too shallow and he runs right in the coverage of that guy whose hand Geno throws over the top of. But he's able here just to get with enough depth to allow Geno to then float the ball up over the top. Cardinals touchdown here, just blown coverage out of the slot. Not really even out of the slot here. This is actually him working out of outside coverage. And one thing I want to talk about with him this year is he did show some signs of being able to play a little bit outside, which was a big question mark with him. Bottom of your screen. This is just a nice concept. You get the 2 Cardinal defenders confused on this play. He doesn't do anything exceptional, just a good route concept, and you catch the defense with their pants down on this play. Browns winner. This was for game. Bubble screen. DK Metcalf with a great block on the edge. Perfect block, not to lean too hard in on that, but a great job on his part of taking another one of these bubble screens. A little bit high, makes the catch, turns into a runner really quickly after the catch, takes it in for a touchdown. Not quite game over. Defense still had to go out there and make themselves a play, make themselves a defensive stand after this. But a nice play by him. When he gets the blocking on this, it can work a little bit. Another one where I don't love the 2x2 situation, but he's just able to use DK's big body and run behind him. Eagles game winner. Another one where the defense had to come back and make a stand, but the offense went down there with Locke on the day where they weren't terribly productive and went up the football field and were able to have a money drive at the end. DK Metcalf made some great catches on this drive. Some absolutely just, he had a one-hander where he not only made the one-handed catch, he pulled it away from being intercepted. But then you have Jaxon Smith with a very nice throw by Drew Lock here, having to run under this ball. Drew put it right out in front of him, gets underneath it. Nice job of tracking the ball there, keeps his feet in bounds. Nice throw here by Drew to keep the ball in bounds. Don't sail this out right. Keep it in bounds. Give your receiver an opportunity to get his feet down. Get another game winner there with him. We got the Niner game with the one-hander. You guys remember this play? Well, out and up move here from him. Just sticks out the paw at the end. Another where I like the route concept here. A long developing play where you're having to trust that pass protection against this Niner defense, and Geno hanging in there with balls of steel. But a very nice job here. Really another little just nice route running. Got to do a couple different things here to get open. And if you look here, he's not really made the break. When Geno throws this ball, I'll slow it down, but when Geno throws this ball, he's still making that outbreak and going up. But working off contact there off the line of scrimmage, twists it up. That ball's already in the air. He turns back and adjusts for it, sticks out the one-handed catch. Good route running, good hands. That's at the forefront of what he does. But these are also cut-ups that can show he can attack down the football field. It doesn't have to be, you're throwing me behind the line of scrimmage and I'm bubble screening my way up the field with 4 or 5 yard dink and dunks. He can get up the field and attack. This is how he had the 300-yard receiving game against Utah. Go back and watch the highlights on that game. Is that Ohio State throwing him bubble screens all game for him to build those yards up, or is he getting down the field and C.J. Stroud's slinging it down to him, letting him have it? He also did some really nice stuff working outside, like I said. He actually ended up with 30% of his snaps last season working from the outside. Here you have him running kind of a slant route. Unorthodox, a little bit slant route as he takes his time to get off the press coverage. But a nice bit of footwork here from him on the bottom of your screen. Pop, 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 get open. Geno fit that ball in before the linebacker can close underneath. Nice job. Nice throw here by Geno on the timing of the throw, giving Jaxon enough time to get free. And Jaxon with a nice little catch there. Again, working on the outside. So he's going to be, I guess let me slow it down a little bit here for y'all. You can see. I guess I had this one on the outside, but I think he's actually. Sorry, I lost my trail on him on this one. Yeah, there he is actually. So he breaks out from one across the field all the way to the other side there. Another big play, jumps up, skies up and gets it, shows you off some of the ball skills there. So in the slot in this actually, not on the outside, no, that mislabeled. But still, this is where they'll show you, here's what I can do if you do let me attack down the field. Not scared about the safety coming in for the hit, not scared in the least. You don't see any real fear from him. You don't see him alligator arming balls. He's willing to go up. It's a great release to get off the line of scrimmage. He's getting, here the corner's trying to press him and disrupt that route. Doesn't do it. This allows him to get into the route a little bit faster. Underthrown ball here. Jumps up for it. Again, most coaches would have looked at some of the stuff he did deep in this year and said, hey, let's go more to him, attacking a little bit more with him to the depth of the field at times, but just didn't do as much this year with that. Here we're going to have him again out on the outside, again with some nice depth on this play. He ends up running 4 yards back upfield for some weird reason. I don't know why, but a good job of sitting down in the right spot of the coverage here. This is a little bit of the understanding of when you're getting zone, like he's getting here, find the holes in the zone. See that big fat hole he just sits down in, doesn't press it too far up the field, just finds his nice little soft spot in the hole in the zone, doing all this from the outside. He's not getting pressed on the outside, then I certainly think that he can have a lot of success out there in what he's doing. And that's what he just got here, the off coverage and kind of a drop to cover 3 look there. It looks almost like we're cover 2 on the back end. A bit hard to tell, but doing some work on the outside last season, 30% of the snaps. Another one here on the outside, just like the last one. Come find a little over route, come find the hole in the middle of the defense there. I will say when they did tend to run him on the outside, it was out of condensed splits, just like this one is, where he's not always aligned far out. It's kind of in a little bit of a tightened split of the wide receivers. But recognizes the cover three, sits inside, linebackers late to react. He can do this stuff all day. One of the parts about calling him a route ninja is it's not just about how you're moving with your body. It's also about how you're reading where to sit down. St. Brown, Cooper Kupp. These guys are very quick in short spaces. They can change direction like nobody's business, but they also understand very much how to sit down in the right spots, reading zones on the fly, reading how coverages are coming into being post-snap. And it's hard to do that. Not a lot of receivers can always process that quickly in the moment. And when you pair that processing with that quickness and that agility, that's when you have a player that can give you that top-end production like an Amon St. Brown or like a Cooper Kupp does. Just as where I think at the end of the day he will be at his best, though I think he will be out throughout his career. If he'll mix in some snaps on the outside, I still think at the end of the day, this is an inside cat running these kind of routes. He becomes, to me, unguardable on these kind of routes. It's a real just simple crossing route here, but when he's got what feels like a two-way go option off the snap with that jump, that little jump move off the jump release post snap, when he's got the opportunity to do that and he can run this crosser like this and you've got man coverage essentially on this play like the Seahawks seem to have, he's going to eat that up all day long. And this is where if you put him in the slot, you can find that number one like production from him eventually, I think, because these kind of plays open up. This is another spot where you look at a guy like Kupp or you look at Amon St. Brown. This is the place that these guys live with these kind of routes. You see first off, bottom of the screen, DK is going to run off the corner. Bye-bye. And where's that safety going to go over the top? You think about it, and even if he's just two steps late getting downhill, that single high safety there, he's thinking DK, 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 DK. Okay, got to get down. Got to get down back down to Jaxon. It's the power of having a DK paired with a Jaxon. And as I say with all this stuff, it's always a couple step thing you have to watch here. He takes 3, 4, 5, 6 steps back. That's all for DK that he's doing that for there. Those steps there, he is the single high safety. It's his responsibility to stay over the top. But what that also then prevents him from doing is being able to react to a guy he can see is cleanly getting open underneath, because he's got to be aware of DK over the top. Whenever I watch the All-22 tape, I'm always wowed by how much teams, even in subtle fashions, always have that extra safety shaded over towards DK. And when you pair that DK getting over the top with a guy like this that could get open underneath, this is where I think Jackson's best place is going to be at, is working underneath. Here's just a drag route against Washington. Quick catch, get up the football field. About a 15-yard gain, nothing fancy here. But how do you defend it off a free release? He's going to end up with, is that Cody Barton trying to do that? Is that Cody Barton in coverage there? Looks like Cody Barton. That's the Cody I remember. But this is why I think he'll be eventually, this is his long-term spot. This is where he'll find success. Underneath, let him run these little routes. Let him get the field. Let him also attack with some depth down the field, but let him also run these routes and not behind the line of scrimmage. Another one here working from the slot. Change of direction. Slot guys, if I can't read where you're going to go at the stem of your route, here's the stem. Bump. Bye. Little stutter step there. Gets the Cleveland defender one little step inside. Gets into stumble just a little bit inside to open up that catch. Doesn't go for a lot, but that's how it works when you're a slot like this. Sometimes just the 5 or 6 yard gain. But it's a really nice run route. Gets out, doesn't round out that route off of his cut. Watch how quickly his cut takes him out without any real rounding, keeping the separation in that short space between him and the defender. Again, out of the slot, quick little, just attacking the kind of a soft zone coverage look here from the Bengals. They leave him again with a free release, and the corner's about 10 yards off. Geno just attacks it and hits him underneath. Kind of wonder if him and Jaxon kind of just read this. And the way that Jaxon came off the line of scrimmage, it almost felt like a freelance play between him and Geno. Feeling that coverage at depth. Another play here working from the slot. Watch here some of what you get sometimes with it that's also a little bit of that, what I call the touch from within the slot. Just kind of, he's not being lazy there in his route running, by the way. This looks like, well, why isn't he running hard right off the snap here? Why doesn't he just haul and butt? You see him kind of bottom of your screen there, not bottom, but just up from the bottom there in the slot. And the reason is that he's got Noah Fant there to run the coverage off. So he's showing a little bit of the hesitancy here to allow Fant to be able to run this coverage off because Fant's running in front of him, and then he can run underneath. And Geno recognizes he again has a mismatch here with the linebacker on his slot receiver, and he'll take that mismatch every single time. Jackson's wide open. But I would keep him more often in the future here. I think this is where he's going to be at his best still, rather than thinking about him as an outside guy. I think this is where he finds his most capable footing, because you can allow him to have this kind of feel for it where he doesn't have to push his route up the football field or clear something out here. He can sometimes kind of just do some little touch things in his route running to allow himself to get free there. Now, when it came down to the final word on this one, I'll let you guys be the decipherable on this one. Some people thought maybe JSN was kind of joking around on this cut up. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I will let you guys decide on this, but he was asked here a little bit of a question in regards to Waldron, and I think when I am making the case here a little bit about usage, that this is a little bit of smoke for my fire, that maybe he's also having a little bit of feelings if you were to put him on the lie detector test, that indeed, yes, I wasn't used in the proper fashion that rookie year. They didn't use me in the best ways to get the best out of me. But let's see what you guys think on that. That's why I wanted to include this clip. Let's see where you guys stand on this.
Bears fans are super interested about the offensive coordinator coming in, Shane Waldron. What can you tell them about who they just hired to try to get this offense where it needs to go?
This is live?
Yeah, we're not live. We're not live.
I'm playing. Good luck to y'all. I mean, he's a great person, great offensive coordinator. I was very lucky to have him my first year. Learned a lot from him. I think him and Justin will mesh well, and adding more guys around him, I think it would be great. So we'll see.
So he got a little bit, I think, presidential in his answer at the end and just took the high road. But the initial reaction was one of not to just say, this guy's one of the best offensive minds in the game. He's going to get the most out of you. It's going to be awesome. There was a little bit of instead, wasn't expecting that question. We've all been there. Where you're looking for the, what's the PC answer I can come up with here? And so I do come back to this last season of not necessarily saying that this is Waldron as the big baddie in the room, holding Jaxon back from his true potential, but that you had a rookie in Jaxon finding his way. You have that combined with the offensive coordinator not necessarily using him in that right fashion. And if you come back to a team that's back end of the train, they're the caboose of the NFL when it comes to targeting the middle of the field. You would kind of just logically, if you were deducing down this one a little bit, going, well, if we're the team that targets the middle of the field the least of anybody in the NFL, then probably our slots and our tight ends are going to be not very highly productive or highly targeted or highly used. And that's kind of the case in both of the two elements of things. I know some people have mentioned a bit that Grubb last year with Penix was more driven to work the outside of the field and not as much about operating in the inside of the field and his usage of the passing attack. I think some of that, though, had to do with the decision-making of Penix and the freedom that Grubb was allowing him, and that Penix is a little bit of that gunslinger back there and that he wants to let it rip. He wants to let that one wood, that Big Bertha hunt. And so he was going to take his shots when he saw the defense giving him the opportunity. Some of it is also, I think, the wide and hash marks, which can have you have a tendency to be to one side of the field, and you got all this other side of the field and all that other room to use that other side of the field, and so you use it. Then you go over to this side of the field, the other hash mark's way over here, and you're going, oh, I'm going to use all that side of the field. It's a little bit of less of a tendency to target that middle of the field, where with the NFL and the hash marks more evened up, a little bit more closely aligned, there's more of a necessity of targeting the middle of the field, and one that I would expect Ryan Grubb to do so. He did in the prior year, not this last season, which they did still use their slot this last season, but Jalen McMillan, their main slot there with UW, was injured most of this year. When you do go back to the previous year, though, he posted a 1,000-yard season and 9 touchdowns for the Huskies, all running predominantly out of the slot. So Grubb also has an understanding of how to utilize a slot receiver, how to get them up the field. That's over 1,000 yards on the shortened college season for a slot. So understands how to get them down the field and attacking. And those two places I go back to with Jaxon Smith last year is that all of those targets behind the line of scrimmage, he's not really a purified yak guy. He's not in this Deebo Samuel or this last draft of Malachi Corley. He's not that kind of guy. He can do yak stuff. He's got yak in his game, but it's not at the forefront of his game. And the way they used him last year, very much you would have thought that. And then the not really trying as much to push the ball up the field with him and let him attack down the field, because he also showed in those few moments when you gave him those opportunities that he could do that as well. I think both of those two things are going to change out this year, and I think they're going to help to lead to better productivity. And if he gets you 630 yards last year on a season when he's used like that, what does he do for you when you're actually using him correctly now in year 2, when they say players tend to make their biggest leap as players? So I do expect Jaxon Smith-Njigba to have himself a breakout year. I think it gets very close, if not over the top of 1,000 yards. I think Grubb's going to really like to do that utilization I showed there between the Metcalf and Jaxon Smith. It becomes sort of a basketball fast break where it's like a 2-on-1, it starts to feel a little bit like. But when you have defenses that want to round over to DK and run in and play that bracket coverage, and they're essentially going to devote both the trailing corner and the safety to get over to DK, even as I showed that in that cut up where it's not necessarily a pure double team there to DK. It's not the safety running over to DK post snap and that they're just both bracketing DK up, but it's just that 3 or 4 or 5 steps of drift. It's that 5 steps of drift back instead of kind of being drifting a little bit forward, or being more just holding your ground and saying, I can trust my corner on the outside to stay with that wide receiver. And now I get pulled out of the play, and now we've got anybody underneath should have some extra room to operate underneath, as long as you have an offensive coordinator with enough ingenuity to be able to have something that he's built in his route running concepts to attack it, number one. And then, of course, philosophy as a team and a willingness as a team to actually target the middle of the football field. Both those two elements definitely help out to get the most out of that DK soft double that he tends to get. Not always is the pure double where they run over, but it's like I showed in that cut up where it's that just that couple of steps can make all of difference in the NFL game. It is a matter of inches and feet and all of that at times, and that stuff can make a very, very big difference in the combination of DK on the outside, Jaxon Smith in the slot. This is the one that I think long term is going to be works best for the Seahawks. Play a little bit on the outside, but I think we are going to need in the long term to have a guy that we can think of on the outside that will work best out there. Maybe it is a Bobo, maybe it's somebody else, but the future does look very bright for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and I was very impressed by what he did the rookie year, considering he wasn't always, I think, used in that right fashion.